So the key to the TopCoder methodology for developing components is the manufacturing discipline that's put behind it. Now, what discipline means for anybody out there who's still a cowboy and just likes to sling code from their hip, discipline is doing the same thing every single time. It's having repeatable steps, it's having a repeatable process, and it's making sure that you're consistent in every piece of your development methodology. When we build a component, it's just like a conveyor belt. I like to explain it to people where components should look exactly the same every time they come off that conveyor belt, with the exception of the functionality that they satisfy. So what I'm going to show right now is an e-commerce suite of components that you can find on the TopCoder website. It's a Flash application that you can scroll through and you can see all the major modules, which as a definition is the grouping of components. Each one of the modules is represented by the components underneath it. Let's look at the security module, since this is pretty applicable to any application you're going to be building. This is our authorization component. We've had competitions to do both the design of this component and the development of this component. What you're looking at right now is a component page. This is a high-level overview of this component. What you can see here are the authors of this component: the winning designers, the winning developer, the design review board members, and the development review board members. The review boards are used to objectively score each one of the submissions. So this component, authorization, probably had about 5 submissions for design, 5 submissions for development. These submissions go through an extensive peer review process using online tools that we provide our review boards. These tools will provide a means for the reviewers to go in and rate these components on a series of about 30 different criteria. Development is a little different from design because we are now evaluating the submissions based on how well they perform. With design, we have conceptual designs, we have detailed use cases, detailed class diagrams, detailed sequence diagrams, but for development, we have actual working source code. So our review board members in development really fill 3 primary roles. One will be assigned the role of stress tester, one will be assigned the role of accuracy tester, and the third will be assigned the role of boundary tester. Now, in addition to doing formal code reviews, these test cases help to summarize the quality of the submissions. Now, in addition to the component page here, you can see there's a list of deliverables that come with the component. That's under documentation. Now, note that every component has this documentation, so there is no ambiguity in what the deliverables are for a TopCoder component. Each component has the associated documentation with it. This documentation is what defines what the component does, how to use it. It's key. Now, you'll notice that if you go through the TopCoder component library, every component, like I said, looks the same. The conveyor belt model holds true because we'll have the same documentation, every component will have class diagrams, use case diagrams, sequence diagrams, requirements documentations, developer docs, which would be in the form of either Java docs or XML docs, depending on your language, and the TopCoder process we put in our scorecards, so you can see what these components were evaluated over. Now, in addition, this component has a section called component hierarchy. The reason is this component is made up of 4 different base components. So you can see that the base exception component, the configuration manager, the logging wrapper, and the simple cache component are all used as part of our authorization component. You want to really get the idea in your head that these are building blocks, and this authorization component is built out of these 4 smaller building blocks. So as we're building applications, we use the same type of methodology. We're just building on top of these base components and these complex components to build complex applications, things that actually satisfy business needs. The paradigm shift is really starting to come into play here because you're no longer looking at an application and saying, how am I going to build this and design this? You're now saying, let me build this application out of the tools in my toolbox. Let's go to my toolbox, let's throw the components on the whiteboard and figure out how they go together.